Team, as far as I can tell, there's something that we have to get right first, but we're too constantly focusing on externals. I believe that, as we continue to have this conversation, we're going to see that this relates to, at least from my experience, of both an interpersonal relationship, whether we're looking for a life partner, some camaraderie with some friends, whether we're looking for a community group to be a part of, or whether it's even just working out and working through some basic tasks. As far as I can tell, there's this large sense in the community, and I'm speaking about this from conversations that I've had with many of you in the comments section, in emails and phone calls, folks that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, who are all looking for some of my thoughts and to have a conversation about my experience as it relates to what I think that we have to get done right first. And as we get this moving, I am looking forward to your thoughts, your conversation down in the comments below as we continue to master our craft and develop our tactical virtue. Too many times, I think, as we look to others to validate ourselves, to give us a sense of identity, we're losing something that is intangible within us in this process. And I think a lot of younger folks go through this as they're looking to another, especially, I don't want to just call out the young men, but that's who the audience is here, right? For the vast majority, we're dudes here. There's a lot of dudes out there who are looking for Mrs. Right. I mean, God knows that between, ages up to 19, that was certainly the case for myself. Falling for the first thing that would say yes. And the reason that I was doing that, ultimately, I believe, was because I was looking for that sense of identity from somebody else. Thinking that if I had a relationship, that it would somehow fulfill me. Now, I'm very fortunate to have been married to Mrs. Stoker now for just over 25 years. And I can certainly attest to and speak about the value that relationship brings. But I've learned over the course of my marriage and my life, and with friends that I've had and have now, that if we don't get ourselves right, we're never going to have a relationship that is right. But too many times, I think so many of us are just not okay in our own skin. We're not okay with ourselves in our head when everything is quiet around us. We need stimuli in our lives, right? We need conversations, we need sex, we need drugs, we need to go out and shoot with other people. We need to have conversations and go out and drink and party with everybody else, because in those moments we are losing ourselves to the group, to the community, to the other person, between the sheets, whatever it is. It could be a school. It could be a school of thought. But we're too afraid to back away from and be quiet in and with ourselves. Because it can be scary. But I think, the basic things that we're looking for in all of these other folks in this process, I believe that if we apply those things to ourselves first, and then in and with somebody else or another group, that we can find a lot more meaning and value in life. Now, for me personally, that first value, that first virtue that I'm looking for is integrity. I want other people to be honest with me. I don't need the truth to be sugar-coated. I don't need to be told an easy right over a hard wrong. I want somebody who's going to speak and do what is right regardless of the circumstance. And as far as I can tell, in a relationship, when people do that and they respect one another and they can hear one another and they don't take it as an attack, it actually makes that community that much stronger, right? Nearly every relationship that's out there that goes through any sort of issue and challenge and friction points, if you dwindle it down and start to screw it down towards the root cause, you're probably going to find a lie in there. A lie that was told for whatever reason. And for those cases where the truth was told, and that became a friction point for the receiver, odds are you're going to find somebody who's not being honest with themselves. And so I think that if we apply that to ourselves, if we say, Stoke, man, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to actually apply that first principle of leadership, which is to know yourself and to seek self-improvement. If we actually go through this and we live it and we incarnate it, I think that we may find that there's a lot of situations that in the past had we applied that we may not have gotten into. Because ultimately we know that some things are right and some things are wrong. If you've ever served in the military, you know that every Friday you got a safety brief. Leave a comment down below about your most favorite safety brief comment, right? And too often people tell other people, leaders tell subordinates what not to do on the weekend, right? Don't do drugs, don't beat your spouse, don't do X, Y, or Z. We constantly are telling people what not to do. Well, people already know that it's not okay to do drugs, that it's not okay to drink and drive, that it's not okay to beat somebody else up, right? Or to do something else that's illegal, immoral, or unethical. And yet people still do it. But if people were actually honest with themselves prior to taking some of these actions, as opposed to getting lost in the moment. Again, we're looking and getting lost and drowned out in the sense of community from other people because they are the ones who are validating who we are. If we disconnected from that and said, you know what? I think I'm good. Hell, I think I've had enough to drink. I don't need to take you to an apartment, to a hotel, or to the back of the car. I need to stop. I need to separate myself from this moment before I do something that I'm going to regret, and I know that I'm going to regret it. See, we're not honest with ourselves. And we're looking for that sense of validation in and from somebody else. After that, for me, man, I'm really looking forward to people that have a sense of empathy, have a sense and degree of justice in their life and duty, and who are being selfless with who they are in their time. Those things, they matter to me. And so if I apply those things to myself and say, Stoke, what would be the right thing to do? So first I identify, using a sense of integrity and honesty with myself, this is the right action. This is the right word that somebody else needs to hear. And then I need the intentional fortitude to actually do it. right? That's living with a sense of justice, doing what is right, legally, morally, ethically. And in that process, especially if it's a hard answer for somebody else, I need to have some empathy and not just be trying to tear somebody else down in order to build myself up in the process, because not only would that be losing that sense of empathy, but that would be losing that selflessness, because I'm twisting and turning this whole thing around and making it about me and my being right as opposed to helping somebody else. I think we need to learn how to lessen ourselves so that that which is bigger and greater than us can increase. But our ego often gets in the way in this process. I know it has for me. And I know that as I've talked to some other folks who've gone through some marital relationships, I mean, hell, again, Mrs. Stoker and my hardest year was our 10th year of marriage, as we really wrestled with who we were individually and who we are as a couple. And I've talked to some other folks who've shared a similar experience of going to some marriage counseling and finding it to be ineffective because that the counseling that they were a part of and were participating in was working on them as a couple, but not working on them individually. And so what they found in their experience was they needed to work on themselves and get right with themselves so that they could get right with other people. If you look at shows like Alone on the History Channel, great show, it's fun to watch. The number one challenge that people have, ultimately, is being alone with themselves. Being lost in their own thoughts. Getting caught thinking about the validation that they have in a loved one. I think that speaks, and if we're honest with ourselves, it should really speak to us and beckon us to look within and see where we would be in those situations. Being alone. That can be a hard thing. Sitting in silence is a hard thing, right? Get too busy trying to engage with others in one form or another. Hurling stones and building ourselves up. In this, to kind of bring it back to our fieldcraft, I'm a firm believer that no man is an island, and that there is a strong sense of value in community with people that we connect with as it relates to our fieldcraft. But I know several groups that ultimately are all about building the group up or a group leader up. And this is both locally, nationwide, both on and off of YouTube. And these folks out there are kind of selling some snake oil and will talk out of their mouth to you, but out of the other side of the mouth, they're spewing hate and contempt and distrust, and it's not seen in private or in public. I can't abide by it, man. The dude does not abide, man. Not by that kind of crap. All the meanwhile, folks are trying to join some of these groups because there is that sense of value and identity in that community. But again, team, I just think we need to get gooder. I know that if folks are out there struggling, that this may not have been the best answer, the best formed answer, if you will, right? But I do hope that it maybe might spur some conversation again down in the comments, or that it might spur something in your own mind as it relates to finding and being true to yourself, connecting with that which is larger than you, and then relating it to how you can be right with somebody else. Because if you're not right with yourself first, nothing else is ever going to be right. On the surface, it might be. But at that first point of friction, man, it'll all go to hell. Team, I appreciate you guys, man. These past few years have been something else, and I'm certainly thankful for the community that is being fleshed out and what it has done for me as an individual. So many of y'all have spoken some wise, true words, and that counsel is appreciated. Your time here is appreciated, right? That's something that you can't get back. So I appreciate it. So I'm going to sit here for a while, think about a few things, and take it off, man. Till then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.